Right, I had this client, um, he didn't have any family, he didn't have no next of kin or anybody. And I didn't have him, I've had him a couple of years maybe.
Yeah.
He's he was one of them clients that he wanted to live how he wanted to live, and that's fine because he still had capacity. So, you've got to allow, for him to live his own life. I mean,
Yeah.
he was blind, he couldn't go out, but he coped.
Yeah.
So he said he had no family, there was no next of kin, so there was nobody that you could say, oh, you know, did you know that he could do with this or he could do with that? So in a way, I was the only contact with him.
Yeah.
And after I had a week off just after Christmas, and when I went back, he was fine. And then on the following, I left him on the Friday and said, "Oh, I'll see you Monday morning," and he was absolutely okay. And then I got a phone call at 6 o'clock Saturday evening to ask if I hold a key for him, and I said no because he didn't want anybody holding a key. He didn't want a key safe.
Yeah.
They called the police. The police got in, found him on the floor. They picked him up. He refused to go to hospital. So they basically made sure that he was sitting down or whatever they done for him. And the same thing happened on the Sunday because the carer couldn't get into him. So when the police come, they called the ambulance and they insisted that he went to hospital. So they took him to the hospital on the Sunday, and nobody notified me that he'd gone in. And I went round because I actually thought he was still at home because I know what he was like. He would refuse to go. So I went round there Monday. When I went round there Monday, you could see all his door where the police had kicked his door in. I spoke to the neighbour, and the neighbour said to me, basically he said, "Oh, I've got a key." So I said to him, "Well, I can't go in there if he's not there."
Mm.
So that was that. I rang my office and informed them. I got told by my coordinator that he said he's only just been informed, which I really don't know how, maybe it's just a lack of communication with all the authorities. And on that Monday, I got a text on my phone to say that he tested positive for COVID.
Mm.
And but they thought my phone number was his phone number. But this man never owned a phone. He never even had a landline because he couldn't use a phone.
Right. Yeah.
So basically, they kept ringing me to track and trace people. Yeah. So, but I couldn't work out how they had my contact number because the only person I gave it to was the nurse at his GP surgery to do with having his feet looked at by the chiropodist that come
Yeah.
out. And that was to do with Guy's and St Thomas's. So that's the only explanation I can come up with, that it was on his file.
Mm.
Yeah, that's the only explanation I can come up with. But the track and trace people kept ringing me. I spoke to 4 different people at track and trace, and I said, look, he's in hospital. He's in King's, so he's in King's College. But nobody didn't say that. The lack of communication is quite bad, really. And I rang up my office and told my coordinator that I've got this message on my phone. What should I do?
Mm.
And he went to me, make sure you wear your PPE. So that was quite intriguing. So I was like, well, don't you think I do that anyway? Because that would make sense. And that was the simple answer to that. And then King's College actually phoned me on the Tuesday and said that I'm the only contact that they've got for him. Can I give him a ring back if I want to know how he is? And if I was interested. So I rang them back, but that took ages to get in contact with somebody at King's, because I understand that they're busy and the rest of it. And they said to me, oh, do I know what happened? So I said, well, my suspicions were, I said that he probably went in with a water infection. I said, because he'd had a couple of accidents Thursday and Friday. But he was quite a stubborn man, and you couldn't really do much with him because he still had, capability. So she said, yeah, and then she said, he's not very well. She said it's because of the COVID. But I said to her, I can't understand how he got COVID because he doesn't go out. I know I haven't got it. So where did he get it from? And was it that he got it when I was off for a week and other carers had been into him? So we could only assume that. And then they rang me, they rang me again, and they said that he was in a bad way and they're just making him comfortable now. There's not much they can do for him, which I thought was quite shocking, really, considering that he was quite all right Friday when I saw him. And I said, that's a shame. I said, he has got a, don't resuscitate thing put in place anyway. And I said, I can't even come up and see him. So I think this was the Wednesday or the Thursday. Yeah. And then she said to me, that'd depend on, the nurse and how it is. So I said, I wouldn't like to think that he'd die on his own. So she said, she goes, she said, I'll have a word. She said, because it'd be down to a head nurse. So I said, oh, okay then. I think that might have been on the Thursday, because on Saturday night, about just before midnight, they tried to ring me, and I couldn't get hold of anyone at King's College until 1 o'clock on the Sunday Sunday lunchtime. And that's when they told me he passed away Saturday night. And then they told me that, she said to me, she said, they'll be ringing you. She said, because you're the only number and only contact we've got. And she said, and the bereavement people, she said, go through things with you. And I thought, well, it's really nothing to do with me. But because of all this COVID situation, you can't even get hold of a social worker, because apparently the social workers are all working from home. And I feel that I've been put in a position that I should never have been put in anyway. But at the same time, I now can't leave him there. So when the bereavement people rang me, and they said to me that about registering the death, which, okay. So I actually registered the death. I went to his bank for them to shut his accounts down and for them to pay for his funeral, because it was just a straightforward cremation. And then I got his ashes, and yesterday I've done a little thing. I actually put me at the bottom of my garden and scattered him at the bottom of my garden. But what do you do in that position? Because, he says he's got, there's no family, and it turned out he has got family, but he doesn't, he doesn't speak to the family. He's not been in contact with them for about 40 years or more. So there was nobody going to come forward for him anyway. And his flat, he lived in housing association, and they rang me the other day and said to me, oh, nobody's come forward. to say, you know, like they wanted anything out of the flat. I said, but there isn't anybody. I said, so really, you know, I'm going to leave it down to you to clear the flat out. Because, you know, there isn't anybody, is there? And nobody, and it seems as if nobody's taking responsibility. And it just seems a lack of communication, because he can't be the only person like that. What would happen if there was another person like that? Surely that the hospital has a system where they get in contact with social services, a social worker or somebody. I suppose I felt quite let down, and I felt it, you know, it's sad anyway, because you know, it's somebody that you've built up a relationship with, and you know that his little quirky ways and everything, and then, you know, to say goodbye and then I'll see you Monday, but you don't ever see that person anymore, and then that person's now given back to you in a container. You know, it's a bit much, really. It you know, emotionally, it's quite upsetting. And it's, on the other side, you feel quite frustrated, because, you know, there's nobody saying, oh, you know, don't worry about it, we put it in front of some, you know, we can give it to this social worker and let them deal with it, or, you know, it just didn't, none of it didn't make sense. But I couldn't leave him there, because I don't think that's right either. You know, so, you know, isn't it a shame that in death there's no dignity? Yeah, it does make me wonder. I'm just assuming that they've got to have some form of protocol, haven't they, in a hospital, that if no one claims that body, they must, you know, they've got to do something with the body. They can't keep the body. And I mean, just when you think that this job can't give you no more surprises, then you have the big one. You know, and it's quite unsettling as well, you know, to think sort of that somebody's lived that many years. I mean, he was 84, that you've lived to the age of 84, you know, you've come to the end of your life, and then that's it. Oh, it doesn't matter anymore. You know, that's how it kind of felt to me. And I thought, but your life did matter, because it mattered to me. You know, it mattered to me. So, you know, to the end of it, you know, and I thought, well, you know, what, you know, I would like to think if I was him, that someone would do that for me. So it's caring what happens to the person after they've passed, isn't it, as well? Because for us carers, I suppose we get to the point of, you know, we do lose clients. It's part and parcel of the job. But at the same time, some of them clients we've had for years, and we see more of them than we do of our own family. You know, indeed. So, you know, so they become really part of your extended family, don't they? In that respect. I don't know. I mean, I saw my supervisor, must have been a couple of weeks ago, and, you know, and I did mention it to her. I said, because I think when I saw her, I think he was being cremated the next day, I think, or maybe that morning. Not really sure now. And she went to me, she said, you're his next of kin again. I said, well, no. I said, because he didn't have anyone. I said, there was nobody. I said, nobody said, oh, you know, we need to do this or we need to do that. But she didn't really, you know, I suppose because I've done it, she wasn't really that bothered. You know, so she didn't really say, oh, you know, oh, you know, maybe we should have got in touch with social services, or, you know, or anything like that. It was just, you know, it was just like, oh, okay then. Yeah. And I do think there should be informations and guidelines that for that situation, you know, how do you approach that situation? What, you know, who do you contact? You know, how does it all come in place? You know,
Definitely.
but you're not told anything. You know, it's just been left, and you know, and I don't know where, you know, I honestly don't know where you can have an agency that provides care that doesn't provide anything else. You know, you're providing care, you know, and you're providing the carers to do the care, but what about the care that you need in, like you say, in somebody passing away? Where's the support for the carers?